Imagine for a moment, what do you think Jesus was doing before that night, when he was born in a humble manger in Bethlehem? Was he simply waiting for his time to come into the world? Watching from a distance? The real answer is more amazing than you might guess. Long before the world even began, Jesus was active, powerful, and very present. Today we'll explore the surprising story of what the Bible tells us about Jesus before he came to earth. The story of Jesus doesn't start with his birth. It starts at the very beginning, before there was time. Picture the very start of everything, when there was nothing but silence and darkness. That's when John 1 verses 1 to 3 opens with something incredible. In the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. From the very beginning, the Word was with God. Through him, God made all things. Not one thing in all creation was made without him. Here, the Word is Jesus. This shows us that Jesus didn't just appear one day. He was already there when everything began, and he played an important part in making it all. He wasn't just hanging out. He was creating the stars, the sky, the trees, and everything you see today. And there's more. Paul the Apostle tells us in Colossians 1 verses 15 to 17 that Christ is the visible likeness of the invisible God. Through him God created everything in heaven and on earth. And in union with him all things have their proper place. Can you picture it? Jesus not only made everything, but he is the one keeping it all running, even now. Now here's something to think about. Jesus wasn't just a helper in God's plan. He was at the very center of it. In Hebrews 1 verses 2 to 3, we read, "He has spoken to us through his Son. He is the one through whom God created the universe, the one whom God has chosen to possess all things at the end. He reflects the brightness of God's glory and is the exact likeness of God's own being, sustaining the universe with his powerful word." Think about how amazing that is. Jesus is described as being just like God. He isn't just a messenger or a really special person. He is God, and he shares in all of God's power and glory. That's why understanding who Jesus was before he came to earth is so important. He wasn't just another baby being born. He was God coming to the world he made. But let us go back even further. What about Jesus before he created anything? The Bible gives us a peek into that too. In John 17 verse 5, we hear something about this when Jesus was praying to his Father, saying, "Now, Father, give me back the glory that I had with you before the world was created." Wow! This shows that before there were galaxies, planets, mountains, oceans, time, any form of natural life, or even before the sun shone in the sky, Jesus was there with his Father in perfect love and happiness. He wasn't just someone who would be important later. He was already full of glory and power. Did you know the Old Testament also gives us hints about Jesus before he was born? In Micah 5 verse 2, we read about a special promise. "But you, Bethlehem, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times." This prophecy talks about a ruler who comes from way, way back, from before time. That is Jesus. Even before he came into the world, the Bible told of his great, eternal nature. But why did it matter that God planned Jesus' coming in eternity? It shows us that when Jesus came, it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was part of an eternal plan, set before the foundation of the world, to rescue us from our fallenness and sins. As Ephesians 1 verse 4 says, "He chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and blameless before him." Only someone as great as God could handle the enormous problem of sin for everyone. Philippians 2 verses 6 to 8 tells us how amazing this plan was. "Who, being in very nature God, made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant. Being made in human likeness, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross." And one day, when John the Baptist saw Jesus walking, he shouted, "Look, the Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world." Only Jesus, who is eternal and powerful, could solve man's unsolvable sin problem. He came to freely give us the way back to God. As Jesus said in John 14 verse 6, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." So the story of Jesus didn't begin in Bethlehem. It began in eternity, with him as the chosen one, set to fulfill God's salvation purpose for man. This truth makes the Christmas story even more profound. It is the moment when the Eternal One stepped into our world to bring us back to God.